Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rwambuya here with Dylan Pescatore, Campbell Lewis, and Nicholas for our first episode this year of Beyond the Whistle. So first, we're going to be looking at this Blazers versus Warriors series, which has been, not a surprise so far, with the Blazers winning by over 20 or losing by over 20 points last night. The Blazers were coming off a tough series against the Nuggets, where they were able to pull it out in 7 despite being down 17 during that game, which was pretty amazing to see. And then, of course, with the Warriors, with KD being out, we saw Steph's greatness with 33 second-half points in that Game 6 win over the Rockets. So with all that being said, do you guys have more confidence in the Warriors or the Blazers coming into this series?
Well, with the Blazers, they just came off a tough 7-game series against the Nuggets. They won a big road Game 7 in Denver. You think fatigue could definitely play a factor in this one, and it showed in Game 1. Even without KD, the Blazers still got handled pretty easily. Campbell?
I would have to agree with you, Dylan. I have Golden State in this one. Curry and Durant are just too powerful for the Blazers.
Yeah, I thought that the Blazers would give the Warriors a little bit of a fight early on, especially with KD being out. But after seeing last night's game, I don't know. This is a tired Blazers team, and even without KD, this Warriors team is just too strong. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are phenomenal players, but they can't carry a God squad. They can't carry their team over a God squad like the Warriors.
Honestly, I might have to agree with you guys, but I think if they're able to pull one out on the road with KD being out, I think that's something pretty crazy could happen. Obviously, CJ and Dame struggled last night with 17 and 19 respectively. But if they're able to bounce back, both have 20, 30-point games, I think that they have a shot at stealing a road game, and if they're able to hold at home, they have a chance. But I still have to go with the Warriors for my pick. Moving on to another big series, looking at the Bucks versus the Raptors. Obviously, if you haven't seen it yet, the Raptors had a pretty insane shot with Kawhi Leonard hitting the first Game 7 buzzer beater in NBA history. It was a big fadeaway over Joel Embiid, and obviously the Raptors crowd went crazy. And then on the other hand, for the Bucks originally were down 1-0 against the Celtics, but then steamrolled the next 4 games to get them a conference finals berth. With all that being said, what do you guys think about this series, and who are you liking in this matchup?
This is definitely an interesting series, guys. I definitely think depth plays a huge role in the NBA playoffs. We saw it last year with the Celtics, and although they didn't beat the Cavs, they did bring them 2-7 against LeBron. They had the depth of Rozier, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kyrie. They did not have Kyrie last year, actually. Sorry, guys. But depth doesn't play a huge role. And the Raptors, they have depth. They have Siakam. They have Leonard. They have the big man in Gasol. And the Bucks, they have Giannis. But can you stop Giannis? That's the real question. Campbell?
I think Giannis can be stopped. I think the Raptors will take this one home. Leonard's been going off in the playoffs. I believe they'll take it to Game 7, but it's going to be a close one.
I don't think it goes to 7 games, Campbell, but I definitely think it's going to be a phenomenal series. Look, Leonard must be gassed. He's been carrying this Toronto team. I think Toronto has more depth, but I just haven't seen them play to their capabilities. Fred VanVleet, Danny Green, they have a lot of great role players that are great on both sides of the ball. But again, as you mentioned, Dylan, Giannis Antetokounmpo is absolutely unstoppable. He's a one-man break, and in the paint, good luck. I think the Bucks win in 6 and advance to the NBA Finals.
See, I like that pick with Giannis, but I'm not going to lie. This could be a very tight series. Kawhi's playing like Jordan right now. He seems unstoppable, averaging almost 32 points, 9 rebounds, versus Giannis averaging 27 and 11. It's a very tough pick, but I think it's going to come down to the play of both superstars. We'll really see who's out to get their business done and who really wants it more. Whether it's the MVP candidate this year in Giannis or as a perennial MVP candidate we've seen in Kawhi Leonard.
Definitely.
So with all that being said, let's shift it over a little bit to the NFL draft and what has happened with that. This year's draft, like every year, was pretty crazy in the first round. Obviously, we saw Kyler Murray go first overall, which was a little bit of a surprise, as well as Daniel Jones going to the New York Giants, as well as some other picks, although that pick did make me sad. Ian, what do you got for us?
Well, as a fellow Giants fan, Luke, I gotta say I was underwhelmed when Daniel Jones went 6 to Big Blue. But let me tell you, you have to hold the faith. I'm a big fan of Daniel Jones. I mean, over time, the more I've seen tape of him, the more I've studied him, the more I like him. He wasn't the best quarterback on my board at 6. I was more of a fan of Dwayne Haskins. But at the same time, I think he's the best fit for the Giants. He throws really well short and over the middle of the field. He's a great fit for Pat Shurmur's offense. He's athletic. He ran for 180 yards in a game once, ran a sub-4.7 40 at his pro day. Look, he doesn't have the biggest arm, but he had the highest adjusted completion percentage on the deep ball last year in the nation. His receivers were just god-awful, and that's why his numbers don't stack up to the guys like Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray. Speaking of Murray, I love the pick, I love the player, I love his fit under Cliff Kingsbury's system, but I'm not a huge fan of where he lands in Arizona. That's a dysfunctional organization. They had their franchise quarterback in Josh Rosen, and all of a sudden, they just lost him because they loved Kyler Murray. He might be an upgrade. I think the Russell Wilson comparisons, I think they're pretty accurate when you look at Murray. He wins games in the pocket. He's not just a runner, even though he rushed for over 1,000 yards and 12 scores last year. I think he wins games in the pocket. He has great touch and a terrific cannon of an arm, and they drafted a ton of help receiver-wise so he can spread that ball down the field. I love the fit in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, but that Cardinals team is not going to help him, especially on the offensive line early on. Finally, Dwayne Haskins, 15th pick. He slid a lot farther than a lot of people thought he would. He was terrific last year. He's like a pass-first point guard in basketball. Luke, you know those very well. He just drops dimes everywhere. It doesn't matter. He's extremely confident in his arm talent. Not very athletic, but he kind of reminds me of Big Ben in a way that he's really a strong-armed guy, and he can hang in the pocket, take the big hits, get back up, and he can bounce around and extend plays. He's very smart, probably the smartest football IQ-wise, played in a great system that made it a lot easier for him at Ohio State, but he's more pro-ready than you think. I think Washington should sit him for a year because he only started 13 games. I mean, that is not a lot. Daniel Jones was a multi-year starter. Kyler Murray wasn't, but he played with a little bit of adversity at Oklahoma. Ohio State was loaded with draftable talent. By the way, you know Daniel Jones, you know how many players got drafted out of Duke this year? You know, not Zion and RJ, wrong sport. None. They don't play with a lot of pro-ready talent there at Duke, but at Ohio State, they're absolutely loaded. I'm a big fan of Haskins, but they have to sit him. I think he needs some time to adjust to the pro game.
Yeah, honestly, I was really disappointed to see Haskins drop that far down. I would have rather had the Giants select him than Daniel Jones. And with Kyler, I think it's going to be sort of interesting to see how he does with the Cardinals. Obviously, undersized quarterback. He did terrific at Oklahoma, but I guess we'll see what the future holds for him.
Guys, I want to go back to that Daniel Jones opinion that Ian had. You heard him say that only one Duke player out of the NFL was picked in the draft. And focus here. Duke quarterback picking 6. Duke. I did not know that Duke had a football team before this year. Now I do. Well, tough pick for Gettleman. I really think Gettleman needs to get out of there. The Giants are a mess. They have the least amount of wins in the last 5 years in the NFL, and they just trade a generational talent like Odell Beckham Jr. That team needs some stability, and trading one of their best players like Odell Beckham Jr. is not a way to get that stability.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off there, Dylan. Did you say the Giants have the least wins in the NFL when there's
Come
a
on
team
now.
named the Cleveland Browns
Yes,
that won
Ian.
one game
Yes.
in 2 years?
Yes, Ian. You
I
can
get
look
it. If you're
up.
a Giants
Ian,
fan right now, you might be.
You could look it up.
I can look it up. They made
Yes.
the playoffs. Browns haven't made the playoffs
you could look it up.
since I was born.
Ian, you could look it
So
up.
Don't disrespect the Giants
You
like
know,
that.
Duke went 8-5 this year. Duke went 8-5 this year with no talent
Against who?
whatsoever. I don't know. The
Exactly.
point is, we don't know anything about any of these quarterbacks until they hit the field or week 1 or maybe year 2 with
Can
Patrick
agree with that one,
Mahomes.
Ian.
So we'll see in the future. Drafting is an exact science that nobody understands, and right now we might look stupid. But for right, Dylan thinks he's stupid. I think he's decent, and we'll see in a year or 2 or 3 years, as Dave Gettleman said.
All right, well, shifting things over a little bit, we have Dylan Pescatore here to inform us about what's going on with the NHL playoffs and the Stanley Cup race. So, Dylan, what's going on?
All right, guys. So last night was a huge game. The third game of the Eastern Conference Final between the Boston Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have been the Cinderella story of the NHL playoffs so far. They beat the Washington Capitals, the defending champions from last year, in 7 games in the first round. Then they swept the New York Islanders in 4 games, and now they are on the brink of elimination, down 3-0 to the highly powered offense and defense of the Boston Bruins. Now, the Bruins here, their issue has always been goaltending with Tuukka Rask. No one knows how he's going to perform, but this year he has shown up. In my stats here, he has a .939 save percentage and is only allowing 1.96 goals against per game. That is amazing. And he had an amazing Game 3 performance, making 20 saves in just the first period alone last night. Campbell, what do you think of the Bruins so far, commanding this series 3-0?
You know, Dylan, I would love for Carolina to take this home, but I doubt they will. It's going to be hard for them because they're down 3-0 already.
Yeah.
But I think Chara and Tuukka are going to carry Boston to the Stanley Cup championship.
Now, Campbell, I have a stat here for you. Let's go back earlier into the NHL postseason. The Islanders swept the Penguins in the first round. And
They
then
did.
the Hurricanes then swept the Islanders in the second round.
They did.
If the Bruins sweep the Hurricanes in the third round, does that set up for the Bruins getting swept in the Stanley Cup?
It might.
Do you think a sweep could really have that rest that they get really has such an effect that they can't find their game in the next round?
Well, Columbus actually talked about it a lot after their 4-0 sweep, how they had so many days off and like so many practices and no games, and that really had a toll on them. So we'll probably see that happen in the NHL Finals.
I definitely agree with that one, Campbell. Now let's move on to the other series back out west. The St. Louis Blues, another Cinderella story, have been playing the San Jose Sharks. Game 3 is tonight on Wednesday the 15th, and series is tied 1-1. St. Louis got their split on the road, and now they're back at home with home ice advantage. Campbell, St. Louis has been hot all postseason, and now they have some adversity against San Jose, not winning Game 1 for the first time this playoffs. What do you think of their performance so far?
Well, San Jose has been doing excellent, and so has St. Louis. But in this series, I have the Sharks taking it. Personally, I believe that Joe Thornton and Brett Burns are going to carry the San Jose team to the NHL Finals and possibly win it.
That's a good point. Thornton has gone with a 19-year career without winning the Stanley Cup, and maybe this is his best chance.
I believe he deserves it.
Definitely. Now, a little stat here for you, another stat. So San Jose went 7 games against Vegas in the first round, winning that amazing Game 7.
Yeah.
And then they went 7 games last series against the Avalanche. Now, here's a stat for you, Campbell. Teams who went 7 games in the first 2 rounds are just 2-9 in the conference final. So my pick sets up the Blues are going to win this one in 6.
I don't believe so, Dylan. I'm going to have to go with San Jose. They're just too strong of a team.
You know, Martin Jones had some issues in the first round, and I think those issues are coming back after letting up 4 goals and an empty netter in Game 2. We're going to throw this one back to Luke to wrap this one out.
All right, guys, thank you all for watching. We all really appreciate it. This was our first episode of Beyond the Whistle this year. If you guys are excited for some new content coming up on this channel, then we have Dylan and Nicholas. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you all for coming on and helping us out. Maybe next time you will get a look at a recap of both the NBA Finals, NHL Playoffs, as well as the NBA Draft. Thank you all. And we're out.
Great show.